the judiciary, in the words of Cliff here, can bite. And indeed today it has bitten. What this means is that Miguna is back because the court has said, you know, the valid passport belonging to Miguna must be surrendered to this court within 7 days. And the court has further said that the status quo ante, that is as of the day when Miguna was arrested, should be restored. And you know, on that day, on the 2nd of February, the court had already made an order that Mr. Miguna must be released on a bond of 50,000 shillings. So the court has dealt with several issues. The question of the citizenship of Miguna, that is a moot point now, because now the court has said the valid Kenyan passport belonging to Miguna must be surrendered to the court. The court has dealt at length with the supremacy of the Constitution and the requirement of every citizen to comply with court orders. And I think this judgment should be made available to every public servant, starting from the President of the Republic of Kenya, that nobody is above the law. And I think it is important that we start from the President, so that everybody knows that when the court speaks, it speaks exercising judicial authority, that it is delegated to it by the sovereign, which is the people. And therefore, I think the Constitution has spoken, because the Constitution itself says, you know, the Constitution is always speaking. And today the Constitution has spoken, because you had so many provisions of the Constitution which were being cited by the learned judge. Therefore, we are happy to celebrate with our clients on this particular day when such an important judgment has been delivered by the judge. I want any of my colleagues to say something.
Let me add just two things. I think for all of us, but I think you can hear me. For all of us, there are two things to be said of this judgment. This judgment has restated the supremacy of the Constitution and the authority of the law and the courts over public office and over all Kenyans. Let it be a lesson to anyone, public officer or other, believes that they can do whatever they want despite the law, that is not possible. Secondly, it has reaffirmed the authority and independence of the judiciary as one of the very few institutions left in this country that is functioning independently. And therefore, any threat to that independence must be defended by Kenyans for the benefit of Kenyans. And thirdly and lastly, I think it has spoken to all state officers and public officers that you cannot disregard the law at will. You must follow the law. Thank you.
Can I speak for the law society? Now, thank you very much, and I associate myself with the statements from my colleagues, Masina Orengo and Otiende. What I would like to, on behalf of my client, the Law Society of Kenya, is to celebrate the judgment, because the Law Society's main object and purpose in joining in these proceedings is to ensure that the rule of law is followed and respected, and that the court orders are obeyed. What is important and significant is that the judge made a finding that there was collusion within government, so that even as Matiang'i was acting with a direction or under the recommendation of Kialangwa, the judgment presumes that Matiang'i knew what his government was doing, and therefore it is important for all public officers to know, when you act as government, you will not escape the reach of the courts. Lastly, the Inspector General and the DCI have been convicted of contempt. That must have its own consequences, separate from bringing Miguna back. they must take personal responsibility and show the country that they hold their officers in honor, and after purging their contempt, they ought to resign office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Viva.
Sasa utaona bagi sasa. But sasa ndio na black kidogo.
Of lawyers representing Miguna, actually in celebratory mood. I'm actually right now outside the courtroom. I'm literally on the corridors of justice. You may not have witnessed the large crowds witnessed the last time this case presence around the court building, and there's very thorough screening and scrutiny of every person who comes this way towards this courtroom. It was largely expected or anticipated that the Director of Criminal Investigations and the Inspector General of Police were going to appear in person in court. Well, that was not the case. Justice Kimaru has, however, ruled that there was collusion on the part of the Director of Immigration, the Director of Criminal Investigations, and the Inspector General of Police to defeat justice and to circumvent the court order that had been issued by this court and also the Magistrates Court sitting in Kajiado. He has therefore ruled that it is clear that the DCI and the IG are in contempt of court. He has, however, chosen not to mete out punishment in terms of committing them to civil jail immediately, but has given the option to allow them to purge the contempt, the contempt of the court orders, and therefore directed that status quo be maintained. He has also quashed the order by the Interior Minister Fred Matiang'i declaring Miguna a prohibited immigrant, and he has since mentioned that his passport should be deposited within the next 7 days to the office of the Deputy Registrar of this court. The many lawyers who are here indicating that this is a victory for justice and the rule of law, given that no matter how highly placed you are in government or society, court orders must be obeyed. It's one day that will go down in the history of this nation that executive has been reprimanded by the judiciary. It's a reminder of the day that Justice Maraga annulled the election of Uhuru Kenyatta as president. That is way back in August last year. Many Kenyans who are here expressing their confidence and their satisfaction in this ruling. As I'm speaking to you, the Law Society of Kenya members are actually marching towards the office of the Chief Justice and later to the office of the Inspector General of Police to present a petition to protest the recent events where court orders have not been respected. The Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, Raphael Tuju, had written to the Chief Justice actually a task letter alluding to the fact that the judiciary is now colluding with NASA, or the judiciary appears to be leaning towards NASA in its latest ruling. Well, keep it here on NASA TV as we bring you the events as they unfold, and it remains to be seen whether now order will be restored along the corridors of justice or the executive will fight back. For now, Kenyans, NRM supporters and NASA supporters can expect the General Miguna back in the country. Reporting for NASA TV from the corridors of justice, Milimani Law Courts, I am Maurice Ochieng.